What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Freddy and Friends, and a little change of scenery as I'm in my New York studio, and got a really special guest on today, a drummer. I know you guys have been waiting, um, but a drummer that I've always thought was just top tier, true professional, and just a nasty player, Mr. Tobias Ralph.
Thank
Welcome.
you, Freddie. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you, man.
Yeah,
Thank you for coming out.
it's an honor to be here. As I said, I've never done one of these, and it was a nice, just a great call from you to come do this. So I'm very honored to be here, man.
No, I'm honored to have you, man. What a true, just a fine specimen in the drumming world.
you know, trying to keep going here.
Cool, man.
As you are
Oh,
yourself,
no,
man.
thank you, thank you.
It's,
Well, we've been following each other for many years,
Yeah.
and you were always one of those guys that was very complimentary to me, and I'm a complimentary guy as well. So when I see somebody I like, I'm like, keep doing what you're doing,
Yeah, I said, it's like I saw you and just your approach and and obviously your physical, technical, but it was as I said, like your instruction and how you talk, it was like a breath of fresh air because it was like, okay, I can relate to this guy,
Yeah.
and it was such a great way of breaking stuff down,
Yeah.
and your playing was just so fluid, and and as someone who's always struggled with traditional grip, it was I was a traditional grip player for like a moment, like sort of when like when Weckl first hit the scene.
Yeah.
It was like all of us, we were just
Yeah.
blown away.
Let's try that.
It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
him and watching him and Vinny and Gad and these guys.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
and I was playing with it for a while, and I was able to kind of get around the set, but it was like when it came to the pad, I could do paradiddles,
Yeah.
but that was it,
So, but for as long as you've been playing, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but since you were very young,
Yeah, I mean, I had
like 3, 4 years old, right? That
yeah,
kind of
well,
thing. Yeah.
my sort of got my first practice pad when I was about 4,
Wow.
and that was sort of after,
Was it a Billy Gladstone?
it was one of these
Wood block.
it was actually a Ludwig practice pad, but it was plastic on top, and then it was foam right underneath it. And it sort of had these lugs around it that you could, I guess, kind of tune it or something like that.
Really?
And I believe it was a Ludwig, and then Regal Tip had another similar one that
Wow,
came
Regal
out.
had it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Regal Tip actually was, or I guess they were Collado.
No, Collado,
Yeah,
of course. Yeah. Yeah.
and they had an actual practice pad set. So that was
They did. Yeah, that's a while ago.
so I graduated from, like, it sort of was a buildup. Like, I had a practice pad and like this little symbol.
Yeah.
And my dad was like, oh, he's got, seems like he's got
showing
something. He would
something,
he'd put on some
yeah.
Beatles records, and he was like, oh, he's keeping time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then he got me the practice pad set, and that was it.
Wow.
And he was like, crap. And he's like,
What did
I
I
was
do?
hoping he's gonna be a lawyer. He's gonna do something to make money, But he's gonna be a friggin' drummer,
Yeah. Yeah. It's never a parent's. They're not too happy.
They
about
wanted it. I mean, but they were artists themselves. So
I was just going to ask you that. So,
Yeah.
musical family.
So my mom was a modern dancer and a ballet dancer for a while, and danced with Martha Graham and Isadora Duncan and all these sort of pioneering choreographers. And then, unfortunately, she got injured very early on, actually doing a performance at Madison Square Garden, and they were warming up on a cold concrete floor, and she injured her knee. So she ended up becoming sort of a dance writer,
Yeah.
writing about dance, and had a long, long career writing for the Village Voice,
Hmm.
and wrote many books, and became acclaimed um, for sort of dance journalism, and while also teaching at NYU. And she was able to dance, but not,
Yeah.
but um, one of the things that was just so great is that she was sort of always able to look at, you know, dance and maybe a new choreographer and be very objective about it. So
Hmm.
instead of sort of critiquing it, it was sort of more of like an observation,
Yeah.
And my dad had been a classical pianist,
Oh, cool.
and he was in his he. Both my parents were raised in California. Um, my dad actually studied with uh, Dave Brubeck's mom
Oh,
out
cool.
there. She studied, but it was like he sort of knew. I mean, it's like the last words that she said to him before he'd gotten into Juilliard, and the last words she said to him was like, "Well, you might be good enough to make a career out of this. You might,
Just might be. Yeah.
yeah."
Wow.
And when he got to Juilliard, I mean, he saw all these, sort of plethora of, uh, Asian young kids just
Just crazy. Like where the kid.
blazing,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Okay,
Yeah.
this is not gonna
Yeah.
happen for me." And he, then he kind of left Juilliard and went on to Yale and got his, bachelor's degree in music, and studied, and then taught at Brooklyn College and earned a NYU music history,
Mm.
And then became a sort of uh, teacher, sort of this reading recovery program, which was in the public school systems here in the city, which was a program for kids who were coming here from foreign countries who didn't speak, English,
Yeah.
and so that was kind of, or they had reading disabilities. So
Yeah.
he got, so he did that for a long time before retiring.
So I mean, you're exposed to music.
Yeah,
Um,
all the time. I mean, my parents had, I mean, and I was so lucky to have, my dad, because he would, as he saw me getting more interested in drums and drummers, like he was following along,
yeah.
so, okay, at first it started with, Ringo Starr, and we're going to get, and, and and I remember getting my first drum set, and we set it up backwards, because for some reason, like, it felt great for me to play this way.
Well, you play open-handed, don't you?
I do,
Yeah, yeah.
and I sort of, it's kind of a little bit of an ambidextrous approach, not completely, but I had started this way, but my left foot didn't want to operate as like a, and for a long
Yeah,
time, my
yeah.
excuse was like, well, Dad, the bass drum is just used as a, it says the Beatles on the front. It's just used for display.
It's just a billboard.
And he's like, well, what the hell's the pedal there for? I'm like, it's like, and he's like, hit the fucking pedal, and I was like, I can't do it, and I was playing, and then all of a sudden he turned the set around,
Yeah.
and it was like, boom. He's like, oh, okay.
Okay.
He's a righty. You know what I mean?
Well, that's a good way to find that
Yeah,
out.
it's like,
Wow.
So, but as that happened, he sort of, he, in his mind, he sort of, wanted to expose me to, so it was like he would go look around and say, okay, Max Roach, he's got to
Yeah.
hear Max Roach, and
Yeah.
Drums Unlimited, and, Chattahoochee Red were the, he's got to hear that because, Max Roach was such a, pioneer of melodic and just
sure.
swing. And then, and obviously Buddy Rich. And then, back in those days, there was a big record store up in Pittsfield, Massachusetts here. And we found a copy of Spectrum, Billy Cobham,
Wow, that's
he put that on, and I was
that's
like,
the game changer.
Game
And
changer,
that's the game
you know.
changer for anybody coming up on
it
drums.
was just
I mean,
like,
yeah.
what?
Especially if you were, whatever age you were when that came out. I mean, it's, it's before my time, but that's kind of what
Yeah.
that was like my starting point.
That was just art, right? I mean, it just, and
Yeah.
so from that point on, it was,
Yeah.
and then getting to see, at the when the bottom line was still open, he took me to see Billy, and
Oh, wow, cool.
and I was literally sitting in the front here like this, and and I was in between Billy's two bass drums, and
Yeah.
so I was like looking up, and
Yeah.
he had like the
Yeah.
clear heads, and
Yeah.
at one point he was playing one of these fills, and he lost the stick, and the stick went over the rack toms and landed on the table right in front of me, and everyone was like, grab it, grab it, grab it. The guy was like, here, it's yours, man. So I still have the stick.
Wow. So cool.
Which was like this at the time was like he was playing these Vic Firth rock sticks, and it was like had the freaking splinters. And,
So cool, man.
And it was, it was really. So he sort of followed along, and and then it was, Tony Williams and and
well, this was my question. I wanted to get into your influences, but we wound up there. I mean, so it's so the main jazz guys, and then you start, the Billy and the Tony thing start to happen, and then it just keeps going and going.
Yeah,
right?
I went to this. I ended up going to this this school here, which is what we call sort of middle school.
Yeah.
So after, it was like I finished, PS3, which is public school here, and my final year there, like I'd been a nobody, and then like they sort of discovered like that I played drums.
Yeah.
And I had, one of my best friends there was Troy, and he was this little tough black kid who could, beat up anybody.
Yeah.
And he could rap. No one knew he rapped. So he and I got together, and he did this brilliant rap, and I played drums. And we did the
match made
we did the talent show.
Yeah.
And we leveled the place.
Wow.
And from that point on, it was like
that's cool. So well, let's stay on the influences. So tell me, if you had to really, if you were to dial in on three main guys that shaped your playing in the beginning, who are they?
Well, definitely Billy Cobham.
Yeah.
Vinny Colaiuta for sure, and I would have to say Tony.
And Tony.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because at that point, for me, it was those were the guys that gave me goosebumps.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and then like later on, Steve Gadd sort of like, it was weird. Like I got into Vinny first, and then all of a sudden it kind of went back.
Yeah.
And I had a great friend of mine in middle school, this guy, Chris Wilford, who's a great drummer himself, but he was like a music historian. And, he played drums and I played drums. And I was much younger than him. And he took me to his house. And he was one of the kids, like, he was able to have his whole drum set in his apartment set up, and he
lucky bastard. Yeah.
Lucky guy, and he had he had this black pearl set that was all concert toms.
Wow.
And he sat me down and he's like, okay, you have to check out this.
Yeah.
You need to check. And he put on Asia, and I was like,
yeah.
And then he put on Tinseltown Rebellion with Frank Zappa, so it was like this whole like amalgamation of like, and he was the one who first exposed me to King Crimson and Adrian Belew.
We're gonna talk about that because that's one of the things that when I I don't know if it's pre-Instagram, well, not pre-Instagram, but at some point I caught a video of you playing with Adrian Belew, and I feel like, if just on the subject of Adrian Belew, probably in my opinion one of the most underrated musical talents of all time.
Yeah.
Definitely. 9 out of 10 guys don't know who he is.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a shame.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm also a guitar player, writer, and as I was coming up, and my favorite drummer of all time, well, probably my top three. I'll get there. But Bill Bruford. Yeah. So that's my story and this whole Adrian Belew connection.
Yeah.
Bruford was my guy for most of my, probably from middle teens to early 20s, right? But it was, just so you know, it was Buddy.
Yeah.
Billy Cobham,
sure,
Louis Belson, Ginger Baker,
Bill
Bruford, John Heisman, a lot of other guys.
Yeah.
But when I was exposed to this, the 80s Crimson stuff with Adrian Belew and the writing and the guitar playing, the songwriting. So I was
Yeah.
like obsessed. And then they came out with that album in '94. I was 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Thrack.
Thrack, yeah.
When Thrack came out, it changed my life.
Yeah.
And obviously Pat.
Yeah, very well.
I know Pat as well.
The
And
best.
yeah, what a great guy. They threw him on there, man, and a whirlwind for him being with Bruford and that fucking crew, right?
Yeah.
But that record and that little time period was magic. And then and just the writing and
Yeah.
so I just became obsessed with that crew. And then as a guitar player and a songwriter, I just fell in love with Adrian Belew's writing.
Yeah.
Love his voice. He's multi-instrumentalist, and he was making these records where he played all the instruments.
Yeah.
Right around the time where I was kind of saying, well, I play all the instruments too. Why do I need to play with these guys?
Yeah.
Because they're not that good anyway, and this is my music, right?
Yeah, do your
So I
stuff.
had this kind of thing where I kind of adopted it from him. So there's always a strong connection. But to the point, I stumbled across you playing with, I guess it was his power trio,
Mm-hmm.
and he did Indiscipline.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, who the fuck is this guy playing drums? And it's the solo, and the solo is basically a single stroke roll, like the first minute of it.
Right.
I'm obsessed with single stroke rolls.
Me too. Yeah, I can't.
And I'm like, whoa, who is this dude? And then, then I found out who you were.
Yeah.
But what an impressive display of facilities, just from seeing you do that. And then obviously as you dive in and see what you're capable of, it's, it makes sense. But how the hell do you wind up with those guys?
Well,
and you've played for a lot of people. So I guess that's probably part of the story.
Well, it was a really, it was just, sort of like not word of mouth, but it was like this sort of weird progression of how things happened. So what had happened, was that, I had been playing with this German artist Nena,
Mm-hmm.
who had that tune 99 Luftballons, and which was it was a big 80s hit.
Big 80s hit. Okay.
So
Yeah.
she's a huge pop star there, and I had gotten a recommendation to do that gig from the bass player, great bass player Paul DeLeo, and it was mainly Van Romaine's gig,
Mm-hmm.
but Van was off with Enrique doing, so I ended up getting to play with them, and then they also brought in Marco Miniman to do a couple of dates, and so for a while, like Marco and I were switching off,
Okay.
between sort of legs here and there, and and he became sort of a really good friend, and then we ended up playing on the Montreal Drum Festival together, which
another monster, Marco.
It just was incredible, and at that point, like when he came out, like everyone was like, who the hell is this? Like,
and when Marco came out, I only heard about Marco when I started listening to the Aristocrats. I didn't know about Marco prior to that.
Yeah.
But obviously he was making waves.
He was when he was like, you get up there and like, incredible players like, Simon Phillips and Greg Bissonette, everyone's like, what is he doing?
Yeah. Yeah, he was out there.
It was up there. But, one of the great things about him also is that he is, Marco's always had a very a big pop sensibility. So as much as sort of the complex stuff he plays, he was always a huge Police fan and all that, so he understood,
how to lay a beat down that people could actually fucking follow, because
exactly.
At the end of the day, that's what they want. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So what happened is that after we became good friends, he had gotten the gig with Adrian's power trio.
Okay.
So he was playing with Adrian for a while, and then he got I guess a bunch of other projects that were sort of taking him away. And at that point he was doing clinics everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
He still is, of course.
Sure.
And he was very kind enough to recommend me to Adrian. And
Wow.
he's like, he's just like, maybe I'll recommend you to Adrian if you want to play.
Oh
I was
yeah,
like, sure,
yeah,
yeah,
right.
sure,
Shit, amazing, man. Yeah,
So, um, and and sure enough, Adrian called, and or his manager and wife Martha called,
Martha. Yeah,
and they flew me down to Nashville, and so did I. Of course, I went crazy learning, trying to just make sure I knew all the stuff.
the power trio stuff that he was doing was really out there stuff, and I
Oh
know he
yeah,
threw some of the Crimson stuff in there too, but it must have been a steep
it
learning
was. I
curve.
mean, the sort of the between, sort of watching these live videos of what Marco did and then
Yeah,
listening
yeah,
to, the
yeah. You're trying to follow
the
What Marco's
what Marco's
doing.
doing, and then
Yeah.
the drummer before that, Eric Slick,
Hmm.
I mean, it was just
This
like,
the brother of the
yeah, brother of
the bassist,
Julie.
Julie's
Yeah,
brother. Yeah,
yeah.
that's the original.
The
Yeah, yeah,
original,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it
yeah,
was,
yeah,
and they were killing, and
yeah.
so it was just, trying to sort of, I'm like, okay, what am I doing?
Yeah,
How am I
yeah.
gonna, and between learning Adrian stuff and then, sort of learning, obviously I knew what Bill had done on all this,
You knew the
but
Crimson stuff. Yeah,
how to sort of adapt that to sort of finding the
sure.
in between ground of what Eric did and what Marco did,
Yeah,
and what I'm gonna do,
yeah.
and so we played through a bunch of these tunes, and he was like, okay, sounds great,
Awesome.
and then the next thing was, going up to the camp in Woodstock, which was this camp where, this sort of whole uh, Crimson project
The
was being
project. Yeah,
formulated,
yeah.
and
But
meeting Pat.
Fripp not involved at that?
Fripp was not
He was
involved,
not involved with those little side projects. Yeah,
yeah, so this
the
was,
original projects he was, but then
yeah,
yeah,
he this was sort of a thing that, Adrian and Tony and Pat sort of
so cool.
put together, and I was, was just lucky enough that Adrian decided
Wow.
to bring me aboard, and then, being able to work with Pat, like,
Yeah, yeah.
learning baboom and thrash with
So,
Pat was like,
oh God, man, I can't even deal.
like, we were sitting and working it out, and I was like, sort of freaking out. He's like,
It's
let's go off here. Come on. Let's,
it's a crazy story to hear because I can't express enough how instrumental that music was to me. I mean, that was the creation of me, right? Like Baboom, right? Like that was,
yeah, it's a,
I'm 14, 13 years old when
yeah,
I'm
dude.
really starting to take in new style. That was it for me.
Well, that,
Like, it's such an
that's,
important part.
like that. I had that same feeling when I got, like, when my dad took me to see that, the 80s Crimson,
Yeah.
and they played at the pier over here
Mhm.
on the Beat tour,
Wow.
and it was just like,
Yeah.
what?
Well, I saw the threat. So same thing. My father took me to see the double trio. It was probably like 1995 or something at the
Yeah.
time. It was outside of Philly. Well, in Philly, a place called the Man.
Yeah.
Which you probably played the Man at some point.
I don't know if I did. I can't even remember.
What can I say?
Yeah.
It was absolutely insane. That's so cool, man. To be involved in that. And now look now, and while we're on the subject of Adrian Blue, I mean, I think finally now with this reincarnation of the '80s music with Beat and the crew he's got, finally maybe getting some of the
Yeah.
spotlight that the dude deserves.
Yeah,
I'm really
absolutely.
happy that, like, because they're all over it. But I think people are starting like, oh, who the hell are these guys?
Yeah.
And now they know.
Now they know. I mean, and it's, I don't know if, did you get a chance to see the concert?
I saw it.
Yeah.
I had to, of course, I had to see it. I'm going to be very honest, and this is, that would have been my dream gig. Not that I even went for it or expressed that to anyone,
Absolutely.
but obviously as a Crimson fan, I love Danny.
Yeah.
I love Danny.
Mm-hmm.
For me, Danny was not the guy
Mm-hmm.
for
Mhm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who the guy was, but for
Right.
me, and I think it's phenomenal, and I thought it was great, but I would have rather seen someone else.
Mm-hmm. I get it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
And Danny's killing it back there. It's just Vi was the guy.
Yeah,
I love Vi
yeah,
in there filling the Fripp role. Um, but I would have loved to have seen someone just a little bit, I don't know, more Bruford-esque.
right. I know what you
You
mean.
know, and I get it.
Yeah,
But that's just my only.
yeah. I mean, I love Danny. You know,
Yeah,
and
no,
it
dude,
was
like
great. It was I mean
it's
I was
nothing about Danny. It's
yeah,
just
it was
for me it's a
it sort of it blew me away to see it. But I understand. There's sort of like a I'm not sure what, but I get it.
yeah. There's something.
Yeah,
There's something like if you're a diehard
you know,
Bruford
yeah,
kind of, it's very different,
yeah,
which is fine, and it sounds great, and it's amazing. I'm so
yeah,
happy they're doing it, and it's
yeah,
successful. Like it's amazing, and I would see it time and time again.
yeah,
But I just like, yeah, I wanted Bruford to be
yeah,
there. You know what? No one could replace. It's
yeah.
like
Sure,
fucking
of
trying to
course.
replace Robert Plant or Jim Morrison or
Yeah, sure,
any of these guys. Like
of course.
it's really hard as like
Yeah,
for me to accept that
yeah.
music
I know. I know what you
without
mean.
Bill.
Yeah,
If Pat did it,
yeah,
like Pat would have been perfect.
yeah.
Because I associate Pat with that,
Right.
you know, and he's like kind of like, it's the segue, right?
Yeah, I
That's his
understand.
music as well, but
But
I don't know. It's
yeah,
incredible, and I would probably go see it again for sure.
yeah. I mean, and Danny is just he's a sweetheart. Like there was
Nice
I
dude.
had like one of the greatest stories that I ever had was like uh it's crazy that this happened like during the Crimson tour, the Beat Crimson, not the Crimson Project tour.
Yeah.
Um, I had to step out for a couple of dates to actually play the second Montreal Drum Festival that I got asked to do, and Pat got Danny Carey to come in and like, well, I guess play for me. So, like, to go and there was like we went to Danny's studio
Yeah.
and rehearsed the stuff with him, and
Wow.
that was like another like just mind blowing thing to like
I bet.
sit behind the bronze drum set, and Danny's a huge guy,
Big dude.
and I was just like this little kid behind this set, and I was like, oh my god,
Yeah. It never gets old, right?
It never gets old.
It never gets old. It doesn't matter.
And
It's
he was just this, the sweetest guy.
Oh yeah, Danny.
Yeah.
We got to get you on, buddy.
Yeah.
Dying to have you on. That's cool, man. Yeah, so like that was my exposure to you originally, and then
Wow.
we kind of became friends online, and
Yeah.
then seeing a lot of the nifty, handwork coming out of your camp, man. I mean, and then like if you're really diving in, then you can your way around polyrhythms and meters, and there's not too much I don't think you can handle on a drum set.
I mean, there's I want to say just drumming in general has been sort of a learning lesson, and it's it's like I definitely feel myself always sort of getting humbled, in a good way,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I've had like been fortunate to sort of, be able to sort of work with students where like I'll have a student who comes in and just like I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm going to pay you
I can't help you.
Yeah, I can't help you. What is that? What are you doing?
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah, and
You'll love that.
and then seeing students who are, and you can kind of see like when the light bulb goes off when they
Yeah,
get it,
yeah.
and it's just
Yeah, but that's a testament to you, because you're filled with humility, right? Because most guys at a certain talent level, or they don't ever want to know that there's somebody that can do something that they can't do, or they would never.
yeah,
Like you said, you're honored to be here talking to me. Like that's the kind of guy you are, right? And that's just a thing that is a beautiful thing to carry with you. But I feel the same way. If I'm around people that are doing shit that's like, how the hell you do that? Like, let's show me. Like,
Yeah.
I want to learn. Like, I'm not better than you. You're not better than like. Let's learn. And I think that gets lost.
It is. I mean, it gets there's, I want to say that there. there's kind of there's healthy competition,
Yes,
and then there's sort of
that's right.
a not so pretty side of that,
That's
and
right.
sometimes it kind of it can go into that direction, and I think, I mean, as a drumming community, um, we are, definitely lucky that for the most part it's a positive,
Yeah,
uplifting,
I think so.
but there are those times and where it's sort of uh in my opinion, sometimes it kind of gets um to a point where it's not about um it becomes not about music, and
Yes.
and again, I don't I'm all for um I think that working on technique and everything is mandatory and it helps, um but there's sort of been a this pressure sometimes of like, well, you know you got to be, this fast, you have to have,
Yeah.
and I think sometimes it can hurt, a young drummer coming up, um, because you know you're a drummer, but you're here to also serve the music, you know what I mean, and it's
Yeah.
like, so,
Yes.
you know uh there's only a handful of drummers that you can listen to that actually make you cry, you know what I mean,
Sure.
you know what I mean.
Yeah, there's not many.
There's not many, I mean, it's
And
like,
it's always going to be behind a band.
yeah, it's
It's
always
always
going to
going to
be
be in the
hard.
context of music.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not going to be just an open solo
Yeah,
usually.
exactly.
I think what you're saying is important. I think we're in a time now where
I mean,
if
and
you
I like what, as sort of, a you know the younger generation than me, what is your, and you've done a lot of, you know a lot more like camps and workshops and stuff like that.
yeah
What is your sort of take on that?
yeah it's a great question, and I think it's a bit scary to me where
Hmm.
it's going,
Hmm.
and for the reason being is it's to me it seems like it's turning into a sport.
Right.
Um, speed. People have been chasing speed in every medium forever, right? And
Right.
whether you're and when you're talking about music and drums, and back then Billy was probably when they
Right.
saw that, right? Like Billy Cobham, like, "Hey, you ain't getting faster than that," and then
Yeah.
the next guy came, and it just keeps going and going.
Right.
But what I'm seeing in the camp landscape and the people that are actually coming out, and it's trends, right? 10 years ago, gospel chops.
Right. Right.
That's all. That
Yeah.
that was it.
Yeah.
That's anybody kind of getting online. If you didn't know shit about anything and you just kind of took all the information and dove into the drum world, you'd be getting hit with that.
Right.
Fast forward now, it's pretty much in this extreme metal speed who can play
Right.
past 300 BPM kind
Right.
of shit fest, as far
Yeah.
as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Some of these guys have technique that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
A lot of them are my friends. These techniques are insane.
Yeah.
Some of these guys have the ability to have a technique that's manageable, that they're actually not going to fucking blow out their hands or feet,
Right. 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 Right.
in a couple years down the road. I'm very concerned about the longevity of these players.
Hmm.
And I'm very concerned about the young drummers coming in and just being only exposed
Right.
to this one particular style of
Right.
music. I don't have a problem with that style of music.
Yeah.
And like I said, most of my friends are doing that kind of stuff at a level that we didn't think was possible.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
the only issue is that all the other stuff that goes along with the drums is, the young guy's not seeing it, because at the end of the day, you just said it, it's the context of music. And I always use this stupid little phrase, like the drummer's job is boom, bop, boom, boom, bop.
Right.
Really is.
Right. Yeah.
And and while they've always tried to get up there with the guitar player and do the flashy shit, like, music listeners don't want it,
Yeah.
you know? So you have this landscape where people are chasing this insane kind of sporty technique, flashy, whatever you want to call it. And I don't, and that's fine to a degree. you have to have some of that. You know,
Yeah.
I'm still chasing speed. You know, I
Oh
want to get
yeah,
faster. I mean, you
absolutely.
want to get faster.
Absolutely.
You want to get, we all want to get better. But it can't be the only thing.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think that's where it's stuck right now.
Yeah.
I don't see anybody doing anything that's that interesting.
Right.
Um, I think Jojo Mayer said it when they asked him why he doesn't play double bass, and he's like, I don't hear anything that interesting.
Right.
I don't.
Yeah.
It's just how fast can you play your 16ths? And if you can't do them, you
Right.
can't do them in singles. You do them in doubles, and then
Right. I
you know,
think
like,
Alex
like,
Cohen
I was
maybe
just
the
gonna
one.
say our buddy Alex. Alex is doing cool shit with his feet.
Yeah.
But again, like the bass drum is not like the most like you know.
Right. It's one of those things where you can't. You can if you were just sort of listening to it, you can't always tell like okay.
It's not
you know,
really the medium for it.
right.
And I think like sometimes you just got to let things go, and but I think it's incredible a lot of the stuff that people
Oh
are doing.
yeah, absolutely.
It's not always to my taste, but I'm like old school, I'm like a jazz guy and fusion and stuff like that. And the stuff that impresses me is just tasteful playing,
Yeah.
Mixed in with a lot of technique.
Yeah.
But pulling back and like the Brufords of the world and the Cobhams and all those guys that
Well,
we
that's
talk
what
about.
I mean. Like again, watching your playing is so great because it's musical, but it's like you can. It's like your technical mastery is
Yeah.
is
Well, thank you.
is great. And it's like I'm like, what is he doing?
I mean, like we all figure out a way, and I people always ask me because, I do play match grip as well. It's not as
Mhm.
good as my traditional grip. And that's when I practice matched because I don't need to keep building upon a strength.
Right.
I might as well work on the weak area.
Yeah.
I think for certain things in life, don't fuck with the weak
Right.
area. Just keep going with your strengths, right? But for other things, like, if you find them more useful, you have to kind of tighten up.
Yeah.
In business, right? You got to kind of learn a little bit about marketing, finance, all these
Yeah,
things,
sure.
right? If you want to have a business. So
Yeah.
you can't just be really good at this one thing, right?
Right.
I find it like I put a lot of work in on a particular thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's what I got good at.
Yeah.
And then trying to escape that and trying to find other things to get good at is kind of where I
Yeah.
spend my time.
Yeah, but that's great.
But it has to interest me.
But you need to do that. I mean,
need to
I
do
think,
that,
I
yeah.
think in a way, like especially in this day and age, you need, it's. I guess it's unfortunate and fortunate, but like that you also have to sort of. It's not just about the drumming, it's sort of like again like marketing and
yeah,
how
this
you
is
do
not-
it, and it's such a and this whole
course.
sort of thing of okay, put content out there, and almost like okay, but I don't have any content, I don't even feel
Not everybody can do content, man.
right.
Not every it's we live in a time that it's nearly impossible.
Yeah.
It's nearly impossible. I wouldn't.
I mean, there's so
it's-
many incredible players, of course, and it's just, and I'm like, I don't, okay,
It's an impossible time.
Yeah.
It's noisy. It's saturated. Everybody's out there. Everybody's great.
Yeah.
I mean, like I was talking to, I had Louis Palmer on, and we were talking about VHS tapes and how I had to learn how to play. Right. I mean, I didn't really have any lessons and stuff. My dad was a drummer, and I'm dissecting
Yeah.
fucking VHS tapes, and now you have people breaking down drums in a way, and all kinds of music in a way that you never thought was possible, right? So you have so much information.
Yeah. Well, that's
talent,
it. It's like,
the acceleration of the talent is just,
yes.
I look at when I was 13, 14, how well I was playing versus what's out there now at 13, 14. I mean, we saw that with Tony Royster, like when that dude came out with fucking 10 years old, you're like, what?
Yeah.
But like, that's always going to be with anything.
Yeah, sure.
You can't let that discourage you, but you also have to look at this landscape and understand like where you really sit in it, what you want to do, what you're really good at. And a lot of people are well-rounded, you can get by with the content, and you have enough talent in this area and that area, but it's a tough landscape for a musician.
It is.
It's really bad. It's really, really bad. I mean, and like the tours don't pay that much.
Yeah.
The online things don't pay that much, and if you're in the drum space,
Yeah.
and it's really small, like the drum industry as a whole is if even drum sales and stuff like that, it's not even like $1 billion.
It's not.
It's just like a couple $100 million dollar industry. It's very tiny. You
It's
know, the guitars trump that by like 5x.
yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, there's not a lot of. I think there's more than ever.
Yeah,
You know, and I was talking this with Louis. You know, a guy like Estepario has been a great boon for the drumming community. Just the simple fact that he's exposed just drumming
right,
at a different level to just people that were never drummers.
right.
And so it's bringing more people in, which is cool. You know, you
Yeah,
want the industry to grow, but
absolutely.
it's very tiny. If you're
Yeah.
talking about making a living in it, it's very difficult.
Yeah,
It's
I
very
mean,
difficult.
it's been, again, as for all of us, is like that was, again, my dream, of like, making a living as a drummer, and for a while I was sort of doing it,
You had a couple moments, yeah, of
yeah,
course. No,
and
it's the way it is. Yeah,
it was great, but you know, at a certain point, I reached, this age of like, okay, I have to figure out how to bring in something steady, and it
it's
was,
tough. Yeah.
I mean, it was the hardest thing for me to go, and first get a job at Amazon, and then, and then for the past 5 years working at FedEx, and but being able to sort of, you know, uh, look at the end of the week and say, okay, well, at least there's something coming in, all right, at least
Yeah.
there's some health benefits,
Yeah.
at least these are, as I
Yeah.
got older, these are things that like,
Became important. Sure.
and so, I mean, and I, when I had like a couple of musician friends saying, oh, I didn't know you were working at FedEx. They're like, oh, yeah, rather hear it. And I'm like, you know what? It's actually kind of smart.
You
I
gotta do what
mean,
you
as
gotta
much
do.
as exhausting as it is,
Yeah.
it's, it's,
It's
believe me, I'm still trying to figure out how to
yeah, and then
make
I
a
mean,
living
look,
just doing drumming. But
and it's never over. You
yeah,
just have these peaks and valleys, and
yeah,
some guys have a luckier break than others. You know,
yeah.
you had some great gigs. You had some
I,
great. You know, you've done
I
amazing
had
things.
a great, had
Yeah.
a great, run there, and I
Yeah.
was, and but it's sort of, as they say, sort of life takes over,
You can't predict the future. I think with music, you know, for me, like, kind of fortunate in the sense that I wrote music. I played other instruments.
Yeah, I didn't
I
know you
had a
played on.
yeah. I mean, I have a lot of music out there. I've had stuff on the radio. I've had I did collaborations. I mean, there's other things. It's still not it's not massive, but
Yeah.
it helps.
Yeah,
I also think, like I always tell people, like you should if you're just a drummer, learn to write,
right.
make some music.
Yeah.
At least if you want to stay in music,
Yeah,
get the session work.
yeah,
Do you got to do it all.
Yeah.
You got to do it all. And unfortunately, the time we live in, because as you said, I do a bit of camps and clinics and stuff, and like it's very disheartening to see that those are just shrinking,
right.
and they should be expanding.
Yeah.
That whole market should be just blowing up right
Oh
now.
yeah, absolutely.
But it's shrinking because nobody wants to leave the comfort of their stupid fucking phone,
right,
right?
right.
And they just want to, and all the
there's-
guys that have, you can go on YouTube and learn
That's what I'm
whatever
saying,
the
yeah.
fuck you need, right? But I'll tell you what, if you got a special technique or something you're able to teach somebody, you can't learn it over YouTube.
No,
You can't learn it on,
Yeah.
on fucking Zoom either.
no.
You got to do this shit in person,
Yeah.
and there's no replacement for that. And that's like when I'm out there, it's always the case.
Yeah.
There's always somebody that's coming in and like really understanding what I'm trying to show them. And it's a good feeling, and it's unfortunate that people are not craving that.
Yeah.
And I just think they're of a time where they're not used to that.
I know. It's like I wish so much that a lot of kids would have been sort of, like able to go to the Drummers Collective, when it was really,
At its heyday.
it was like such a hang,
Yeah.
and like you'd have guys like Peter Erskine, or
Guys coming through, yeah.
they would come in and they would do like a week master class.
Yeah. No, it's
and
important.
So,
It's
like,
important.
I remember sitting there and Louis Belson was doing that, and he got off there and got on the practice pad, and he was like, "Okay, so Tobias, here's what I'm doing," and
Yeah.
it's like you're sitting
With Louis.
with Louis,
Yeah.
or hang out with Lenny White, and Lenny goes, oh,
Yeah.
here, we're gonna watch a video of Harvey Mason,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
just
it saddens me.
that kind of one on one,
Yeah.
I mean, one of the greatest lessons I ever got was, I attended one of those things that Peter Erskine taught.
Yeah.
And, he said, had everybody, you guys want to come up and do something with me or play, and so, I wanted to kind of trade some fours with him, jazz, fours. And, you know, he was very kind, and I was nervous and all that. And,
Sure.
but, but then my dad would always take me to these things, and he looked at my dad and he's like, he's like, sometimes the most important thing is not what you play. And it's okay to play simple,
That's right.
and
Yeah.
he just like,
Yeah.
that was it. And that was,
And then and you're going to get that from people that are real professionals, because
Yeah.
they know that, like, the guys that are on all these records that have actually made money, the Gads and the Peters and all these guys, I mean, most of the playing simple.
Yeah.
It's a job.
Yeah.
They're showing up for work.
Yeah.
Their work is to play the beat.
Right.
And it's not to do all this other fancy shit that is,
Yeah.
the stuff that people are really on the drummer end.
Yeah.
You gotta understand, you're playing for drummers, but you're not.
Right.
You got to be playing for them,
Yeah.
for the audience.
Yeah. I mean,
That's how you get somewhere. And I think if you're stuck in this drummer tunnel,
Yeah.
you're not going to go too far.
No, I and I said, like, I think it's, for me, like, getting to play a lot of sort of R&B gigs here in the city, like
Sure.
a Beaker Street thing, the Groove and Cafe Wah, and like, again, like, another big influence for me was Nat Townsley.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And Nat, to me, was like one of these guys who could, figure out how to, keep a crowd like moving and dancing, but also soloing at the same time.
That's
And I
not
was
easy
like,
to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Throwing it in there.
How do I was like, how do you do that?
Keeping him going, but throwing in a little something to make him.
Because
express
I
himself,
remember
yeah.
doing like a drum solo, and then it's like, okay, well, drum
right,
solo, I'm
see
doing
ya,
good.
back to the
Go to
beat,
bar,
yeah. That's a true skill. And yeah, I mean, look, it's a tough racket, and I feel for everybody out there.
Yeah.
My mission is just to kind of get people to attend more stuff in person. I think it's important.
Yeah.
And I don't think people should be so focused on the dollar amount versus the value that that they're getting.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's just not ingrained in them. And but again, it ain't cheap to throw one of these things. You want to do a camp? I mean,
sure.
you're gonna have to.
Yeah.
It's and that's why, like, Europe, it's a little bit easier there, logistically, and also the temperament and the attitude of the musicians, the students, whatever, it's different.
Yeah.
It's a more the society is more one of, I don't know, they're really passion there.
Yeah,
artisans. I don't know what it is. It's just ingrained in them.
I've noticed, like, every time I've gone to Europe or South America or whatever, they still believe in either
They're
coming out to see
just
music,
into it. They're
and
just into it, man.
and coming to camps, like they want to, what was that?
Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah.
And I think that those are, for a young drummer, those are pivotal moments, and that those are the moments, those are the real moments that, shape, a person's, a drummer's, trajectory,
I did one. This was 10 years ago. I attended one. It was 5 people, and the drummer was Billy Cobham. And it was 5 of us.
Wow.
And it was 3 days with Billy. It wasn't cheap.
Yeah.
And it was up in the Finger Lakes. And I mean, that was a game changer for me.
Yeah, sure.
And to be quite honest with you, the actual parts where Billy's playing and we're doing all the learning stuff was the least valuable to me. Because at that point I had seen Billy play. I had been studying Billy for years. Seeing him in the flesh and being with him but hanging out with Billy and talking to Billy about just other shit, and then philosophy, and getting to know the man, like, beyond what he's capable of on the drum set, and then understanding
Right.
where it all comes from.
Yeah.
That was,
Yeah.
you
Those
couldn't
are.
put a price on that.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of shit I'm talking about, because people idolize people, man. And I mean, there's you get somebody in a room that you are like obsessed with, that you've modeled, you're
Right.
playing it,
Yeah.
it's it's moving,
Yes.
and but for me it was a great experience, and I looked at that, I was like, why, this should be going on all over the place,
Yeah.
despite the dollar amount.
Well, yeah, because it's I mean, it's like those are life lessons, and
Big
it's
time.
like all that stuff. Those when you know these guys' stories and you sort of get to, share a meal with them or anything. It's like then you understand, you
Yeah.
know, why how they what why they drum the way they drum, why they write the music that they do.
Yeah.
It's putting like the heart and soul into you know
Yeah.
you know
Yeah, I remember, like, I woke up early one day at this thing. It was a beautiful setting too, and woke up early, and there's Billy was down there having breakfast. Pulled up a seat. It was just me and him having breakfast, and I
yeah,
was like, "This is fucking crazy, man."
yeah, right.
And I was pretty young, and I was like, this is what it's all about. This is super
Yeah,
cool." So
that's great.
it's
That's like one of my dreams would be just to sit down with Billy, like
it's amazing.
yeah.
So another question I want to ask you, like, while we're on this, who is inspiring you today? Like, when you're looking at the landscape.
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's so many guys, um, and first of all, I want to say, like, in general, like, um, I can go on any of these social media platforms, or and I can see see a drummer that immediately, like, will inspire me. That there's so many guys out there that are doing such incredible stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I would, it's like you're definitely one of them. I always, it's true, and I'm not
Thank you.
just saying that because I'm here, but
No.
I always look at your videos because, it's again, you have such a great, flow, and how you teach stuff and how you talk about stuff. It makes sense,
Yeah.
and it's very, um,
It's direct.
it's
Just
direct,
direct.
and I like it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is what it is. You
Yeah.
got to do this. You got to
Yeah.
do this,
Yeah.
and then and it's awesome how you put it on the set. Um, and of course, Alex has always been a big influence. Not that I
And you
can
guys are
not
close. I mean, you know
yeah,
Alex well.
but
Yeah.
not that I
Yeah.
can play any of this stuff. But
Yeah.
he's always sort of been like
He's just pushing the
a
envelope.
little brother to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's cool.
and you know, um, and he was very helpful for me, and sort of pulling me out of a rut, and just kind of getting me back focused
Yeah.
on, just practicing and
Yeah.
playing, and same with John Longstreth, who is also,
Oh yeah. He's also collective, right?
he was,
Was,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
he's up in,
Quite a player.
yeah, and I mean, again, just incredible, like, it's death metal and speed, but also he was, always interested in playing jazz as well, because of his dad was a jazz musician.
Yeah.
So he was always, it's sort of like he would, ask me about certain phrases, and then I would be like, okay, what are you doing on your feet, and how do you,
Yeah.
how can you just play,
Yeah.
single stroke rolls at 300 BPMs for like ever,
Yeah. Yeah.
and of course, Nat Townsley is and
Yeah.
still is,
Yeah.
and I mean, and then I also I also studied with a drummer named Seth Davis.
Oh, Seth, man.
Yeah.
I don't know him, but me and Alex
Yeah.
talk a lot about Seth, because
Yeah.
I mean that's a
So he,
fuck, man.
you know,
Seth is,
he was such
and
a,
most people don't even know who Seth
they
is.
know he's such a badass, and he was one of those guys who is so known for, incredible speed.
Yeah.
And but it's like he's originally, he's from Louisiana, so, and he's got all this swampiness to his playing, and taking lessons with him has been not only valuable for my, just from a therapeutic
Yeah.
standpoint, because he's so good at sort of relating life lessons,
Hmm.
and life to drumming,
Yeah.
and he's really helped me a lot with, you know, thinking about space, and timing, and how to, you know, have, so much more roundness to my playing, and
Yeah.
um e- and and sort of the power of like the flam, what I mean, and it's so it's that's he I want to say that he's definitely been a huge
Wow.
inspiration because
Yeah.
it's at my stage of the game, it's sort of um y- there's again I shouldn't, it's everybody has this, but there's there's so much other stuff that kind of gets in the not in the way, but affects how you
Of course.
play the drums and how you want to play the
Oh,
drums,
absolutely.
and it's like,
Absolutely.
okay, you know so it's like, well, Tobias, uh relax with this, just, I mean, and it's like, I still watch you, you're holding all this tension, all this stuff that's like
Yeah. He's coming from a different.
apparent,
Yeah. Yeah.
so for someone who was at one point, so known for just incredible speed, and he's that, of course, still has all that.
Sure.
It's, it's
Yeah.
now,
His
it's,
approach. Yeah. It's cool.
yes, so that's been really good for me.
Yeah. I bet.
But I mean, in terms of guys today, I mean, obviously, Xavier Ware is
Hmm.
someone I think who's definitely pushing the boundaries.
Sure.
Uh, I think Dan Weiss is incredible. You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
and man, I want to say
Yeah.
there's so
No. Of
many
course.
guys.
No. I get it. I
There's
just.
just like jeez, man, who would I else would I say? Um, uh, uh, Zach Dubé,
Jack the Bay. Yeah.
and um, there's just I mean, and Chris Coleman is always like,
Yeah.
ridiculous. So
Yeah.
there's
No. It's
I
just
know
endless.
a
It's
bunch of
endless.
these
Yeah.
guys are just like,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
you know.
But all roads lead back to
Well,
just.
and here's the thing is
They
like, but
all
and
lead
then it's
back to Billy and.
right, because every time I'll look up on a clip of Tony,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, this is still just as groundbreaking
Yeah.
as it was then, because
I agree.
it's so like, I want to say like, when it comes to drumming, like I there's that moment of like, that sort of teeth clenching,
Mm.
like they're going for it, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like Gad on the outro of Asia, like it makes me,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and sort of, but it like makes me, that sort of, when someone's going for it,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and then obviously on the other spectrum is listening to someone like Jim Keltner, where it's just like playing a beautiful ballad,
Just
and they
locked.
just, it's locked, and it's like, you know aware of space,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I think, for me, that was a big thing, is like that, learning about space
What's the hardest one?
is
I
the
think
hardest
this is the
part,
hardest
man.
part of it. Yeah.
And it was like when, I was like having to learn a lot of sort of R&B and a lot of Earth, Wind and Fire tunes,
Yeah.
and I was fortunate enough to play with this bass player Ron Long, who's, sort of legendary, was Bleecker Street, and now is sort of out with a um, awesome Prince tribute. But he was always like, you know, he's like, don't. you know, since true R&B drumming and funk drumming is not necessarily about you playing behind the beat.
Yeah.
It's about, you know, accounting for the spaces between the beat,
Sure.
you know, and then that it sort of made a lot of sense, and radically sort of changed my way of trying to play that music. You
Why do
know,
you think why do you think space in playing drums is one of the last things that people wind up learning?
well,
Art
because
myself included.
I think we're obviously in a era where there's so much incredible blazing technique,
Yeah.
you know, and but I think you know the drummers who have that are sort of getting a lot of notoriety, like Xavier, yes, they have incredible facility, but they also have incredible pocket.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
and obviously they're sort of they get they're the stuff that they're doing and their vocabulary and the chops, like, oh, that's what people see. But what makes what they're doing so incredible is how it's spaced, and
100%.
how it's
100%.
and that's it.
That's
It's
yeah,
not
that's
enough. Like, you can have an incredible whatever chop, you
yeah.
know what I mean, but it sort of means nothing if it's not spaced well and played.
Yeah, and and then you get into phrasing, right? Then
Right,
it's like
exactly.
guitar playing. I mean,
Yeah.
you can have an Eric Clapton to play a couple notes
Mm-hmm.
that'll just blow your mind because it's phrased and
Right.
spaced properly. And
Yeah.
then you can got another guy that'll play, 100 times the amount of notes and be like,
Yeah.
it's always what it's
It's
been.
like, and that's like, and that was, this is a good point. Like, one of the things that Marco Miniman sort of always knew when he was giving a clinic, again, he would be doing some of the most outrageous, complex,
Yeah,
independent stuff, but he would always knew um, when the crowd was getting like it was
yeah,
almost too much for them,
yeah, yeah,
and he would stop.
yeah,
He would have a pause,
yeah,
and he would play,
yeah,
start from a different place, a different groove,
yeah,
so people could kind of reset. You
yeah.
know,
Yeah, I mean, guys just getting up there and like just vomiting all over the
right?
place and not
Yeah,
knowing how to read an audience
yeah,
and stuff like that. There's so many things. There's so many facets to
yeah,
make a great professional
yeah. I mean,
beyond.
again, and I've
Yeah,
seen tons of great drummers,
yeah,
you know, do that where
yep,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like we all have our moments where
Well,
we're
all the
just
greats
like,
do it. All the
yeah,
greats have it.
yeah,
That's why they're great.
yeah.
They all have that blend of all those things we discussed
E-
that actually makes it
exactly,
work.
exactly.
Um, Let me ask you a couple questions here
Hmm.
um, that I like to ask everyone.
Yeah, of course.
What do you think's one thing one habit that you've implemented in your life that's just really revolutionized everything for you?
Um, Drumming related or non-drumming related? Anything.
Anything that's just kind of really made a difference for you that you've been doing now for a long time?
Um, I would, I would say probably, if there's one thing, definitely running, um, has really helped me a lot, um, because, um, it's sort of it's been a really good stress reliever,
Sure.
because it's like, my problems will sort of get in my mind and go bigger and bigger, and
Yeah.
sort of getting out there and running sort of minimizes stress. It doesn't take the problems away, but it
Yeah.
sort of makes stuff more manageable.
Sure.
And I have to say, because it's sort of where my mom lives, and it's 18 acres of property, and sort of, after my dad passed, sort of became my thing to sort of try and take care of the property as much as I could,
Sure.
and so, I think, you know, doing things like getting on a big tractor and mowing a field and kind of going back and forth, and those kind of things, as even though they're not necessarily about music, they sort of um it's like another thing that just sort of kind of calmed my inner anxiety,
Yeah.
and also just sort of like, okay, I'm honoring my dad by doing this, but also like, um, it's like I'm taking pride in it, and it's, and you sort of, I guess the word, is kind of take for granted, a lot of things. So it's like all of a sudden you focus on, you know, these different birds, or you're
Sure.
pulling up to your driveway and you look up and you see an owl looking right at you. It's like, okay,
Life is beautiful, man. Yeah.
so as as maybe corny or cliche as it sounds, sort of taking stock in those sort of simpler,
Yeah.
and it's not necessarily simpler, but it's just um a more calm, sort of
Yeah.
makes you kind of puts things in perspective,
I think it's beautiful. I think musicians in particular, artists, I guess in general, have a very hard time finding those other outlets
Yeah,
that are not related to the art,
yeah,
because I think you go through a period where you think the art is the healing practice.
right,
It's not.
yeah,
It typically isn't.
yeah,
And when you break free from that, and some people learn younger and some people learn older, but you break free from that, you start to experience and appreciate and get other hobbies and get other things, and I think it's scary for the artist, right? You're moving away from the art in this one respect and absorbing and taking in this other thing that you're now kind of letting into your life. It's
yeah,
only because and I'm not saying you particularly, I'm just saying generally, like
yeah,
myself included, like you've been closed off
right,
to what's right in front of you because you've been immersed and just
yeah. You get
completely
you get
encapsulated
immersed.
by
You
this
get immersed in
art
this
or
art
whatever
and
you want to call it.
everything,
Yeah.
right?
And I think it's the best thing that musicians, artists, or whatever creatives can do is fucking move away from it for a little
Yeah,
while.
yeah,
Don't rely on it. It's not your therapy.
yeah,
It's not your healing session.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's something else. You
Yeah,
don't
no,
have to put a label on it.
I'm glad you make that point,
It's not.
because
It's not your healing.
I've as again, as much as I love drumming and coming set, it's it hasn't always been a place of
There's
healing.
probably a lot of pain in it.
Yeah, sure.
There's a lot of pain in it.
Exactly.
There's a struggle.
Yeah,
Like, and there's for the average
yeah.
artist, there's struggle in
There's
there,
struggle.
and there's there's an association with pain and struggle and all this other shit that's essentially negative.
Right.
So you gotta move away from
Yeah,
that. You don't
yeah.
abandon it, but you look other places to find
Exactly.
the soul
The soul of
filling
it.
stuff that you
Yeah.
really need. So I think you're on
I
the
mean, I
track
remember
there,
like
man.
one of the things that really struck me was like Peter, when I took this class with Peter Erskine a while ago, he related this one story, and he sort of said that, he asked Joe Zawinul, like, how do you write such beautiful, beautiful melodies and come up, and, and he was like, have children,
Yeah,
you know? He's
yeah.
like, because, then he's, you're making art with a different purpose in mind.
It's just happy now. Or something's different. Something's switched.
Not only to support them,
Yeah.
but you're doing stuff because you're seeing how they're seeing life through new eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's it's
Now the work, it's always a challenging. It's a juggling act because it can bring you pleasure, it can bring you pain. There's a lot of
Exactly.
strife involved. It's never what you think
Yeah.
it should be. And but I think that's great. Get out there and run, mow, walk.
Yeah. I mean,
breathe,
I just have to
shoot,
do
whatever you got to do.
Yeah,
Just always
exactly.
do other things.
Yeah.
So that's I think it's a great answer.
Yeah.
What's a non-negotiable for you every day?
A non-negotiable. That's a good.
You want to tell me coffee?
Huh? Yeah, coffee,
It's one of
coffee.
them.
Yeah, coffee is a necessity. I mean, I have to say that the caffeine, intake is definitely
Helpful.
helpful.
You got? You have anything else?
Non-negotiable. I mean, um, that's a hard one. But I guess the thing would be that it's non-negotiable for to that I think it's sort of mandatory that like that again you have self-respect for yourself, um, but that you also um, give respect back, but also that you know you demand respect as well. You know, no matter what, no matter you know whatever level or you're
Yeah.
at, or his but that that is something that's is non-negotiable. No matter um, and if if that person is not going to give you that respect, then
Move on.
move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's been a hard lesson for me because I mean, I went through my huge ego, you know, um, and um, and that was a hard you know life lesson to sort of
Sure.
realize. And again, we all have it, but you know, um, to keep that in check.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
and it's uh, there's that thing when it's like someone is telling you something, and inside of you, like you think better, better, and trying to let go of that feeling of just saying, okay, just listen,
Mm-hmm.
just listen.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to agree with them, but just listen.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's
These are hard things to
there's a hard
develop.
there's a hard I mean, it's
Yeah.
again, it's like an everyday struggle,
Yeah. It's an everyday struggle to
but
achieve this.
you
Yeah.
know it's I learned I'm learning that um people um will respect you more when you sort of give them their time to talk,
Right.
and you give them your ear.
Sure.
It's and again, because we're all so connected with our gadgets and our devices, that sometimes the art um, of really listening to a person is sometimes gone out the window because
Sad. It's sad.
as a society, our attention
It's
span
terrible.
is so to just
Terrible.
sit and listen to someone and like,
Yeah.
okay, whether you agree with them or not,
No.
at least
Yeah. No. It needs to be put into practice, and it just doesn't happen.
yeah.
It
I mean,
requires
yes,
work.
there are certain figures in the world who of course I'll just shut off the TV and just go
Yeah. No. Sure. But
but
you gotta.
with
Sure.
personal relationships, like
Sure.
you or
Yeah. Yeah.
even a stranger, it's like, okay,
Give them the time of day.
give them a time of day,
100%. Yeah.
so
Takes a long time to learn those skills.
yeah.
One more for you.
Mhm.
Recommend me a book.
Recommend. I knew the book question was coming, so
That's my favorite question.
I and it's I feel terrible because I was an avid reader for a long time and I need to get back into it, but
As long as you wear a reader,
yes,
then I'm okay with you.
there's I want to say that there's a couple of books that have really like made me think, again, like any of the books that Neil Peart put out, I think are just sort of mandatory reading because
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
because they are, um, you know, yes, it's a book by a revered, one of our all of our favorite drummers,
Yeah.
but it's like we were saying, it deals with life lessons and life
Yeah. I'd imagine
situations,
it goes beyond drumming.
so
Yeah.
that's Ghostwriter, I think, is something that anybody should read because it's you know yes, a hero, but he's also a
He's just a
man,
man. Yeah.
and he's grappling with you know awful losses,
Right.
and how to sort of go through that,
Right.
and how to get through life without deciding, well, I'm just going to end my life,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how to keep going. So I think you know that was definitely a book that um, hit me hard,
Okay. That's
and
cool.
and then now this is terrible. I think it's I want to say it's maybe Caleb Carr,
Yeah.
in this book Forever,
Okay.
and it's sort of like again deals with it's a beautiful love story, but it deals with incredible sort of history of New York,
Oh, cool.
from early beginnings of New York, and it's some really, I want to say, magical story. I mean, that sounds corny, but it's a great,
Sounds awesome.
yeah. And then you're gonna laugh.
It's got 3.
You're gonna laugh, but I would say like this is crazy, but the whole Little House on the Prairie books by
Okay.
Laura Ingalls Wilder.
Okay. Worth it.
Laura Ingalls Wilder was a badass, and
I hear.
and to again, one of the first families and women pioneering,
Yeah.
making their way across the West,
Yeah.
and dealing with, incredible hardships that today we couldn't even fathom.
Sure.
Where's your meal going to come from?
Right. Right.
Where's the water?
Right.
How to build a house? With getting tree. I mean, like just
Cool.
So like, what, Laura Ingalls? Yes, Laura Ingalls Wilder. I will say it, the
All right.
badass.
All right. Amazing.
So, yeah.
Oh man, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, it's been an honor, man. I'm
It's been
this
great
is
to
this
have
is
you, yeah.
great to be here and
Yeah, I've been dying to
you
sit
know.
and chat with you, and I think we covered a lot. So I'm
Yeah,
pretty
well,
happy,
I'm thank you again, man. It's been awesome.
Thank you. If you want to tell everybody where they can find you,
Oh,
on IG or
yeah.
website, whatever, please do.
I'm on Instagram at Tobias Ralph Drummer. Facebook is just Tobias Anthony Ralph. And believe it or not, I think I even have a TikTok account, which is just Tobias Ralph Drummer as well. And there's a bunch of clips of me on YouTube, so whatever,
Well, that was a real pleasure to have you on.
So thank you, Freddie. Appreciate it so much.
Tobias Ralph, everybody. Phenomenal drummer. Amazing dude. Thank you for tuning in again. We'll see you next time.